In the Baltics, they've created a new holiday, Energy Independence Day. They proudly call their exit from the joint Russia-BREL energy system that this system used to include Belarus, Russia, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. It took the Baltic republics nearly 20 years to dismantle this entire system, which is quite a long time. Actually, it's longer than it even took the USSR to initially build and establish it in the first place, if you can believe that. With the Baltic states leaving the unified energy grid, Kaliningrad's electricity supplied via Latvia is cut off. What immediate risks arise? Is a Kaliningrad blockade now likely? What would a total energy shutdown mean for the Baltics and Europe? Ultimately, who benefits from isolating the EU from Russian energy? Historical footage, the moment of disconnection from BREL. For a quarter of a century, the energy systems of 5 countries were linked in a ring through which electricity freely circulated. For decades, the Baltic states enjoyed cheaper electricity than Europe, but NATO saw their energy dependence on Russia as a security risk that needed addressing.
The Baltic states' decision to leave BREL is a well-thought-out, long-term strategy. It's all about severing ties with both Russia and Belarus, marking a clear continuation of their efforts to break away from the old Soviet Union. This has been a nearly 30-year process, a journey towards complete independence and self-determination.
Right up until the very last minute, Baltic experts assured absolutely everyone that the entire process would be totally painless. But within just a few days, the European press was already sounding the alarm with headlines blaring, Estonian electricity prices skyrocket dramatically as Baltic energy costs surge to unprecedented levels. Electricity rates hit absolutely historic highs, jumping from a manageable 63 euros to a staggering nearly 270 euros per megawatt hour in a single week. What a shock. Therefore, to disconnect the Baltic states from the Russian power grid came with a hefty price tag of 1,600,000,000 euros. The European Union provided almost all of that funding. However, there are no plans to compensate these countries for the inevitable higher electricity rates. And nobody is promising to keep prices at the same level anymore, unfortunately, but experts are already prepared with an explanation for why electricity prices have still continued to climb.
Electricity prices have shot up, mainly because of very little wind in the Baltics this week, plus temperatures unexpectedly dropped, so electricity consumption is way up. And to make matters worse, gas prices are also up 10% from last week.
Well, electricity prices here change daily, and it really all depends on the wind conditions. After all, Estonia gets a lot of its energy from Sweden and Finland, and they primarily use wind generators, you see.
Germany's green energy transition was really built on a foundation of cheap energy from Russia. It's ironic, isn't it? Europe then sanctioned Russian energy, a move that seemed decisive at the time, but then things got even more complicated when the Nord Stream pipeline was blown up. It seemed to be breaking its own sanctions in the aftermath.
The Estonian press is sounding the alarm, warning everyone that tomorrow's energy rates are projected to be a staggering 3 times higher than what we are paying today. But if we go across the Gulf in brotherly Finland, where a significant portion of our energy is sourced, electricity for their own citizens will cost an unbelievable 65 times less. Even Anders Dureko, the head of Estonia's own state energy company, is baffled by these national pricing peculiarities. He's publicly questioning our European partners, asking how it's possible that Finland's export price for 1 megawatt hour is just 11 euros, while Estonia is forced to buy the same amount for a whopping 92 euros.
Once the winds die down and the tides stop flowing, these industrialized nations will hoard all the electricity for themselves. They won't care about their neighbors, not even a little bit. So all this bravado about being one big family is complete nonsense, utter rubbish. It's a capitalist world after all. I'm not giving anything away, absolutely not. This is my country and no one shares what is mine, period.
So just a week after those lavish Energy Independence Day celebrations, Estonia's biggest consumer of energy, a large pulp mill, was forced to shut down its operations. The CFO complained that production becomes unprofitable during calm weather conditions. The factory checks the stock exchange forecasts every single day to determine whether tomorrow will be a regular working day or, unfortunately, a forced day off due to weather conditions.
The electricity prices are actually set just a day before the electricity is purchased, which is incredibly difficult for businesses. How can you effectively run a business when you have no idea what the electricity price will be even the day after tomorrow or further out? It's honestly baffling to me. So naturally the price is constantly fluctuating, and it often jumps significantly because of political factors and decisions too.
Manufacturers always factor electricity costs into their product costs, so these higher rates will inevitably lead to some pretty significant overall price increases for consumers, you know?
food, services, everything is just creeping steadily upwards. It's at least 30% higher now. Can you even imagine that? And with salaries staying completely the same, and honestly, they weren't even that great to begin with. Ordinary folks now have to spend at least a third more just to get.
After the Baltic states left BREL, the Kaliningrad region was cut off from Russia's unified system and switched to energy autonomy, meaning it provides its own electricity. They'd been preparing for this in the Russian exclave for a while. Okay, so Kaliningrad's power system successfully completed all the required tests ahead of schedule and has now switched to fully autonomous operation. That's a significant step. Apparently, the region's total generating capacity is actually double the peak load demand, which is quite substantial. The power plants primarily run on natural gas, which, as I understand it, is delivered by ship. So theoretically, the region could potentially be cut off from its gas supply if those critical sea lanes were ever to be blocked or disrupted.
It's been reported that NATO countries have practiced both blockading Kaliningrad and even seizing the Kaliningrad region in war games. Furthermore, since around 2018, US Air Force B-52 bombers have been regularly practicing what are called target approaches in the Kaliningrad region, frequently approaching the region's borders in simulated attacks. So NATO does have such plans. The question is, who would risk such a direct military conflict, which would mean the start of an open World War III?
European leaders claim cutting off the Baltic states from the BREL energy grid is a matter of national security to avoid Russian energy dependence. However, the economic costs of this transition may be too high to manage.
It's essentially the murder of nations, a systematic dismantling. They're poised to hike up electricity prices significantly, and water rates will inevitably follow very soon after that. And we're not talking about decades down the line here. We'll witness territories populated by people, but not functioning nations as we understand them. We already see negative demographic trends taking hold. We see massive escapes of these people fleeing from there, an economic decline that we fully understand. Even though it's mostly subsidized now, it will be physically impossible to restore all of this in the long run.
Indeed, the Baltics can't really count on selfless help from their older EU comrades, can they? Developed countries are suffering from resource shortages themselves, so they have to prioritize Lithuania. Yes, it also had its own nuclear power plant. The Ignalina nuclear power plant, which was built by Soviet specialists, supplied electricity to all of the Baltic countries and even the Kaliningrad region. However, when Lithuania joined the EU, they were required to shut it down, supposedly for safety reasons. But I think we all know that's just the official version.
We're dealing with a geopolitical game in the energy sector. Ruining Europe was, by and large, the goal of the US. They're removing a geopolitical competitor from the field. We see this even in negotiations, say, and the behavior of Donald Trump, because he simply excluded Europe from the negotiation process. He clearly showed that he would talk to the new centers of power, which are Russia.
Objectively, the deindustrialization of European countries and the rejection of Russian energy are beneficial to the United States. After all, now America can sell both its liquefied gas and its industrial goods to Europeans.